Hey everybody, I am so excited because today I have Kathy Kelly here, esteemed conductor, coach, musician, everything related to classical music here. Kathy, you don't know anything about video game music, right?
I don't know anything about video game music.
We have a true non-gamer who has never heard anything about video game music, but of course has worked in some of the greatest theaters and opera companies and symphonies of the world. So we're really excited to expose you, I guess, to video game music, and hopefully you'll come away. I don't know how you'll come away, but I guess we'll find out.
I'm totally excited because the last video game that I think I remember playing was Asteroids in the 80s. Yeah, like in a grocery store. So I have a lot to learn.
In a grocery store.
Well, like my piano teacher, Stephen DeGroot in college, was a winner of the Van Cliburn competition and the best Asteroids player I ever met. He was super competitive about it. And there was a machine in the grocery store across from the music school, and he would go there like on breaks and play on one quarter for like 2.5 hours.
Oh my God.
He was a god of Asteroids.
Well, video game music has really come a long way since the chiptune. So I'm extremely intrigued for you to hear some of these, and I have picked some of your requests, of course, on the community post. If you, in the future, if you'd like to have your requests come up here, definitely post those in the community post. We're going to be diving into a lot of the classics and a lot of classical elements, and then maybe some left hooks here to surprise Kathy. So let's check out. We'll start with Elden Beast. Actually, I don't want to. Let me start.
That sounds kind of Wagnerian, I have to say.
And actually, okay, so Elden Beast is from a game called Elden Ring, and I kid you not, the Wagnerian. There's a lot of Christian symbolism in it, and it's from this company called FromSoft, and they make games that are all based around medieval, or Bloodborne is a high Victorian. High Victorian. Lovecraftian type of game, and they're dark, they're brutal, they're very difficult. And Elden Beast is actually the final boss, and I'm just giving you a rudiment. A boss is like an enemy that you fight that is especially difficult, challenging. Usually it's like a checkpoint marker, so it's like you have to move past the boss in order to get to the next phase.
This all sounds very classical music to me.
Yeah. Well, and so Elden Beast is actually the final boss, and this entire Elden Ring is all about a ring, and there is it's yeah. So, I mean, I personally love that piece. I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Well, it's gorgeous for one thing.
Yeah.
I think because we were just making jokes about Wagner, the first thing that came to my mind was the beginning of Tristan after the overture.
Mm-hmm.
There's this folk-like song that a young sailor sings on the ship, and it's, or I think of the beginning of Cavalleria, right, where after the overture you hear Turidu off stage, also
Yeah.
in dialect. It's kind of a that was a trope that was kind of used in opera at that time. There's the big orchestral interlude, and then it gets really simple and almost like folk-like a throwback to an earlier time. It's kind of a way of signifying to everyone in the theater, like, we're going back in time, or like tale as old as time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, here's a story that was happening 1,000 years ago and it's still happening now. So like that's a really familiar device.
It's really interesting because in the plot, actually, this Elden beast, which is like basically this celestial emissary of the divine will, I forget the exact names, but essentially it emerges out of
like
this.
More German.
Yeah.
Each right now is going like, what did you call me?
The Elden beast actually emerges out of this character named Radagon of the Golden Order, who was this prolific fighter, and you find him sort of essentially crucified, and you fight this husk basically, and then the Elden beast emerges out of this, and you essentially fight it on this like celestial plane, and it's a very interesting battle, but it does feel like even though it is the end of Elden Ring, I do believe that it sort of heralds the beginning of whatever is to come, especially as we move into the downloadable content that's coming out, and then also into possibly like an Elden Ring 2 or whatever. It doesn't really feel like an ending, and I find it interesting that you mentioned that, because it really does have this sort of, like, I think of Deserto sulla Terra from Trovatore, for instance, where there is, it marks that sort of like, it's a placid intro with the singer over top.
Right.
It's a cool trope that you're right. I didn't even think about that. That's interesting.
Yeah, it just feels like that's been going on kind of,
yeah,
forever.
Forever.
But also just, I mean, I love the chorus and the solo, even like not knowing the whole Elden Ring plot or anything, it's clearly like an opposing forces sort of situation. Also, I feel like this composer must have like done their Wagner homework, because the string sounds that come in, it's really viola heavy, and I'm like, Ricard would like that.
Her name is actually Yuka Kitamura. She's actually a Japanese composer, and it's absolutely fantastic. I also love that. What I love about this too is that Elden Ring. So every major, well, all of it has music, and it has ambient music as well. But every boss, again, these boss terms, has a theme that reflects them as a character. And so in some ways they're not leitmotifs, because they don't repeat throughout, but they do only appear when that boss is present. So theoretically there are leitmotifs, and each of them have two phases, which makes me actually think of modern symphonic work, where obviously we hear that as 3 or 4 different movements, but these all have 2. And it's really cool to hear music like this that I actually believe could belong in a symphony hall right now in 2023. Yeah. And this was composed last year. It's mind-blowing to me that that there are living composers that are breathing life into old classical tropes that we've heard for hundreds of years, and that we're still thrusting them into the present moment, but through people's TVs, not necessarily in a what's it called, a simple way, in just for the sake of writing it.
I think you kind of hit on another thing that I noticed about this, because like I said, Asteroids is my last experience, but there's such a strong like storytelling vibe to this music, but also this real embrace of sound, which feels really symphonic. And I'm thinking about how because of everything that's available digitally and how sound can work in this format, you can get that sort of just like enveloping sound experience, which it's pretty awesome when it happens in a concert hall played by live people, but it's not the only option, right?
No. And then typically video game music is it is not even typically, it is exclusively programmatic, which is also really interesting when we consider, historically speaking, we're nerding out so hard right now, but when you like, historically speaking, when you think of where programmatic music began, timeline wise, and and I really would attribute that to like Berlioz, and I think he was the first, right? So that's what
they tell us in class anyway.
yeah. But that's the thing.
He went in hard on that whole like here's a symphony that tells a really specific story.
Yeah. And we see that now, and all video game music is not written for the sake of being written. It is written to tell a story and to aid. And I actually believe that video games are actually in some ways modern operas, besides the singing component.
I think that from this very first example, that feels so recognizable. It's cool. Yeah.
Well, let's move on, because that was 14 minutes of talking about that. Sorry, Nathan. He's like, okay.
Nathan, you can help us, right? You can cut it out. Yeah. I've never even met Nathan. Hi, Nathan.
So next up is this really fun song from this game called Arknights, and it's called Towards Her Light. It's a super different vibe, and I'm trying to keep that way throughout this video. So this is Towards Her Light from Arknights.
Okay.
And it's composed by my buddy now, Adam Gubman.
Like a go yay.
Not to feel unwanted, though the world might abhor. Your home is in Victoria, Victoria, once more. When the night wind calls us to the tussling fields, lost in battle, weary in your heart, I'll uphold your honor as we march to the shore. And I will see Victoria, Victoria once more. My heart will sing Victoria, Victoria once more. Her light, a harbor for faithless, she won't let you fall. When the darkness calls you, anchor safe in her wall. Like a shield, she's Victoria. Her love for you is an army, protected and served. When you're lost, unwanted, she's your hope preserved. Like a sword, she's Victoria. Even if I wander on the hills towards Sargon, she'll keep calling and her beacon lead like a warship steadied through the storm. I am left unshaken, I am safe in her arms, the solace of Victoria, hopeful in Victoria. My heart will sing Victoria We will march past the dusty moors, shake off 1,000 wars, leaving not left alone, victorious. To feel unwanted, though the world might abhor. Your home is in Victoria once more.
When was that written?
2021.
It's like a perfect, what do they call those? The I Want song from the first act of a Broadway musical.
Yeah.
I think part of it is that it reminds me so much of like Come From Away. Or I don't know, just like Celtic music in general. But
yeah,
I feel like the composer also like listened to their Soundgarden because they go into 7/4 at the end.
Well, Adam really likes to play with meter a lot.
Maybe it's just like that's the 90s in me. Anytime I hear anybody go into 7/4, I'm like Soundgarden. But yeah, even just the sort of emotional shape of it, it feels really like the I Want song in a Broadway musical or Disney or something like that. Again, like it's a very common and effective form, right? Here's the thing that I miss. I'm going to sing some more about it. I'm going to build a kind of a climax, and then like the energy is going to drop, and I'm going to say it really personally, and then build up again, and then like finish like alone in the spotlight.
Yeah, I love
that. Works great.
And when we see that though, and that's the crazy thing is that I actually feel like in a lot of ways, because it is slightly strophic, but what I love about it is that it really like sort of takes from the art song style and ebbs and flows it into this modern, like you said, Broadway musical like quality to it that is very effervescent and very heartfelt and honest. And it's in a way there's a purity to it too, which is so like lovely, you know?
Totally. Well, and also just that sort of like longing for a homeland that feels very, there's just a long tradition of Irish music, especially because so many people left that place. So, I mean, all those ballads written like in Australia, in North America about, someday I'll see home again. Again, it feels like something that's part of this long tradition.
Yeah.
But like run through the composer's sensibility. I mean, you said written 2 years ago, so all the stuff that we're talking about, Disney, Broadway, changes in meter. I mean, that's all somebody who has listened to music in the last 20 years. It's something that they would have if they were paying attention at all, right? Yeah.
I'm glad you like that. I like that one too. It's just a very like, a very homey piece. It feels really like, I don't know, there's a purity to it that I really like, and especially that singing, and it has that Celtic lilt to it that feels just so really satisfying to listen to. It's a comfort song.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Okay. When the Skies Speak Latin, we're going to listen to a track called, one second. We're going to listen to a track called Archange, which I'll send to you right now, is from Ace Combat 7, a silly little fighter pilot game where you pilot a plane, but the planes are deities, and you are an ultra extreme fantastic pilot. And this is a battle. I just sent that to you, just so you know. I don't know if you see it.
I got it.
Okay. Archange, the title itself, Archange, Archangel. There's an element there of well, you'll hear, and then we'll talk about it, because this one is one of my favorite tracks from Ace Combat 7. I'm very curious to hear your perspective on this. But let's just say, when the skies speak Latin, you're in a whole lot of doo-doo. So
I just have to say this. I don't know if this is a coincidence, but I walked home from the recital that I saw tonight, just through the middle of Shinjuku. And I mean, obviously this is Tokyo, it's Japan, so I can't read anything. But at some point I walked past a building with an enormous, 4-story high picture of the Pope on it. So that's what came into my mind when you said the skies speak Latin. I was like, oh, maybe they do.
It's a sign. I just love the use of the Latin like that, and it really feels like this, where what's that? I forget. You'll probably know this better than I do, but like with the Verdi Requiem and the Mozart Requiem, it's I forget what the DUC and the Donna Novi.
Yeah, where it just turns into like metal.
Yeah. I mean, what's your takeaway from that? Because obviously it's like such a different approach to using Latin lyrics in a modern sense. This came out in 2018, I believe, so it's not fairly recent.
First of all, I'd just like to point out again, 7. So Soundgarden. A couple of I thought of the Verdi Requiem immediately because that piece stands out to me as I will never forget the first time I heard it after hearing like the Fauré Requiem and the Mozart Requiems.
Yeah.
Like, oh, people are dead. Let's,
yeah, they're nice. Yeah.
And the Verdi Requiem's like, death is terrifying. Wow. Yeah. You're like, wow. But here's my first thought about that. Like, I would attend the crap out of a live performance of that work.
Yeah.
I would. I think it would just be thrilling to hear it like in a live space. It would be awesome. And it would be great to have a choir who could do it, including like all the super low stuff. You'd have to hire those guys who are like ringers for the Rachmaninoff Vespers.
Yeah.
Fun fact, I know one of those guys. His name, if you can believe it, is Glenn Miller. Literally, Glenn Miller, the nicest guy in the world. And he has got one of those like incredible, I sing a real giant low C naturally, and it's not like
that's insane.
Growling. It's like a beautiful deep sound. And he just has this kind of normal life, except a couple times a year he flies everywhere on the planet.
For the Rachmaninoff Vespers?
Or like the Joe Talbot Path of Miracles or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't that be an awesome life?
I mean, pretty much, yeah. You go away like 3 months.
Like, I would hire Glenn and 2 other of those guys to just be like, wow, in this piece. It would just be cool. But also the storytelling element. I mean, the way that you described the sort of outline of the story, like there's, I mean, the whole like fighter pilot thing and like angels, there's elements of that are terrifying, but also exciting. And it makes me think of sort of like, all of the outer space fighter pilot scenes that I've ever seen in my life. But that mixture of thrill and terror is kind of in this music too. Like it's a real adrenaline rush, but like not quite stable and just sort of like awesome.
There's one of the coolest things. So the Latin tracks only play in pivotal moments. Actually, the Ace Combat series in general has fantastic music that spans many genres, and a lot of the Ace Combat 7 tracks are actually there's a lot of blues. There's a lot of orchestration. There's a lot of like Steely Dan, like 1990s, 80s, sort of like, like the Eagles kind of vibes to it. And what's incredible to me is the use of, it really paints a picture, and when the Latin strikes, you're only in a real life or death situation. There's a whole other Latin section when you fight this like nuclear submarine called the Alicorn. And it's unbelievable. I mean, like the way that they use. And so this track in particular, you're fighting against one of the best fighter pilots to ever exist. And you're spinning around and he kind of, when it starts, he kind of emerges out of the clouds, and his squadron called the Soul Squadron comes towards you and your ragtag group of fighter pilots. And the only one that can match him is you. And of course, like in the background, you hear, oh my God, I can't believe Trigger's going up against him. Like, yeah, it's incredible. And so what I also love in this is that when the low brass plays, you actually hear the sound of the jet engine. And it really elevates someone. And I was playing this on stream, and someone was talking about how essentially the music of Ace Combat elevates these planes from beyond just being like mechanical things, but to actually being like beings that are like sentient and not being controlled by person. And it's electric. It's electrifying. And that was a clear example that I'm glad you caught that. Yeah, I mean, it's exhilarating stuff.
It's also kind of using this this ancient language and also these kind of more ancient forms. We're reminded of like requiems and of different pieces that we've heard to sort of connect these stories to, I can't remember, probably some famous person said this that I should be quoting, but I don't remember who said it. But you've probably heard it said that there are only like 9 or 10 or 12, something like that, plots in human existence. and so every time you tell one of these stories, it's connected to all of this stuff.
Yeah.
This happened back then. And I love the use of music that has these associations from many years ago. Not necessarily to say the story is old, but to say the story is connected to like stories that keep on happening. Like war keeps on happening. Technology outstripping our understanding keeps on happening.
Yeah.
Moments of heroism keep on happening. And that's, you said opera, to use music to enhance and tell a story like that. Like that's opera.
Well, and that's the thing, in that video games are one of the few mediums I feel that intrinsically need music. And yes, it would be fun to play a fighter pilot game where you're flying around shooting enemies and stuff, but this like takes it to like a biblical level, which is actually really crazy and elevates it. And I think all of these tracks, as we continue, will continue to highlight that. Let's check out, this is a really fun one. I think you're going to love this. This is called Die Midsommernacht Fantasie, and it's from I know. And it's from a summer event in this game called Genshin Impact, which I have said is the true evolution of classical music as far as we know it. And I can't wait for you to hear this.
That is fun.
Pretty crazy, right?
Well, it's like full on Harry Potter at the beginning. Well, right?
Yeah.
It feels very Hogwarts to me. But there were a couple things in there that surprised me, like mostly the combination of harpsichord sound and electric guitar.
Yeah.
Like when that starts, you're like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, that's just wild to me. Sort of something that basically sounds like sort of Vivaldi writing just, repetitive music for the king's dinner or something like that.
Yeah.
Eventually all the instruments go crazy, and then just, electric guitar.
It's certainly a twist on what we know of as, your typical like simple music that Bach or in a very Baroque early classical time period, that then is taken and flipped on its side when you throw in like a flamenco guitar that makes no sense, and all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, like this is like,
you're like, okay, that's happening. That's
I'm with it, right? And I think this composition team over at Helio Mix for Genshin Impact in particular is so, everything they do is very fresh and very cutting edge with a modern, it's like old with a modern twist. And there are different regions of this game. This was for a random event that literally only lasted 6 weeks, and then it was gone. This music doesn't exist in the game anymore. But every region, they have a region called Mondstadt, which is very Germanic and very, very beautiful. Then you've got Liyue, which is a Chinese region, which is very heavily influenced by Chinese instrumentation. Then you have Inazuma, which is heavily influenced by Japanese folk instruments. And then now the most recent patch is Sumeru, which is heavily influenced by Middle Eastern music. And there's like the Hibanachi sequence in one of the tracks, and there's a lot of like they're educating people on the expansiveness of music and what music can do when we incorporate both the traditional Western approach, but then also we add in the traditional folk instruments of specific regions, and it's astounding what they're able to create. And I thought you might like that piece.
It seems less sort of narrative. It doesn't seem so much like program music as just like straight up vibe.
Yeah.
It's like vibe and energy building, but fascinating to know how they use different like sound palettes from different places.
Yeah, and the way that they incorporate, there may be another one on this video if we can get to it, but just the sheer variety and stuff is absolutely. Also, it's funny because in video game music, the harpsichord typically represents old, and actually this takes place in a battle area called a domain, and this particular character's domain, she's very old, and so the harpsichord is used to emphasize her age, and also like the castle setting, because there's a medieval quality to this. Her name is Fischl. It's a whole German thing. I forget what the official title of this character is, and so it's really interesting how the music paints a picture, but is also simple. It's like this hybrid of things.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. Fun stuff, I know. Okay. Are you okay as far as time? You doing all right?
Totally. Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
Well, I have a lot of tracks here, so I just want to make sure that you're jazzed.
Okay, but I'm just like drinking.
Yeah, vibe away. Yeah, that's totally fine. Vibe away. So this is crazy. We'll just listen to part of this track because it loops quite a bit. This is from a game, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and it is called Mobius Battle. And you'll hear how crazy it is in about 10 seconds. Yeah.
That is fun. Carl Orff right now
Yeah.
in the afterlife. He's not in heaven, but like he's like something feels familiar.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, it's just insane.
I mean, so one of the things that makes me think is that there are big choral works that I know of where I think all the sopranos would be happier if they actually had like digital recreations of themselves singing it. Like Beethoven 9, if you could just like have, you know, digital sopranos singing all of those repeated halfways. I think human sopranos would be like, have at it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm trying to imagine performing something like that live. It would be so hard, like physically hard to do.
I don't even know if that's real. I don't think that can possibly be a real choir. It sounds like it, but
I mean, I don't think so. It sounds to me like a sampled sound.
Yeah. I mean, it's very hard to do.
Right. But again, seven.
I know. It's funny that you're noticing that.
Soundgarden. It's all kind of, or maybe it's Stravinsky. I don't know. But like, yeah, that again is just like sheer vibe, right?
Yeah. And of course, it's called Mobius battle. Battle themes tend to always be sort of a vibe. The battle themes tend to always have a forward propulsion to them and a forward momentum that is like intended to, cause distress and cause a sense of urgency. That's like very quintessentially video game battle music. It's just so interesting that they chose to use in this particular case to have this like choral thing. I also love the ha 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 ha, that very much a laughter thing that we know,
Yeah. But also the like the rock and roll stuff, like the electric guitar, the some of the percussion or drum stuff. It's like this meeting of sort of metal and weird like Nazi cantata stuff.
You know what though? It's funny you say that because there's a whole aspect of these games, these Xenoblade games, that are based on mechanical versus organic, and so that's the juxtaposition, because you're actually living on these giant beings that are made of machine, essentially. I'm pretty sure, and then you have like agriculture and like landscapes have developed on the body parts of these giant machines. And humans, I guess, or other races live on the bodies of these beings that have become frozen in time, essentially, during their battle. It's very crazy stuff.
Wow.
I don't remember the context of this. This is part of like the Mobius, I think, is like a group of people that have ulterior motives. I have to play the game. It's like one of these games that's like 100 hours. It's a huge time commitment. But it's a beloved series.
Like Wagner.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. And these stories are such larger.
Wagner operas are like 100 hours long, right?
If you watch, if you watch it, it's all the Lord of the Rings what's unlimited edition or whatever, or it's like extended edition. I mean, where it has like sheer amount of time. But yeah, so that's a crazy piece. I felt like I should share that with you.
Love it.
Just for the memes, because it is wild. Let's see. Oh, yes. Okay. We're going to switch to something really recent, really, really recent that blew me away when I heard it. It's from this game called Warframe, which is essentially space ninjas. And this particular track, I actually don't know the title of it, but it's from their latest expansion called the Duviri Paradox. And I would love to get your hot take on this when you listen to it. Really, really great, fantastic stuff. Really feels like just right in our wheelhouse. Well, whenever you're ready, I'll push.
I'm good to go. Okay. Oh, wow. A warning for blood and gore and violence.
Always. Yes. Space ninjas.
Dominus, Iraca contemneo, his curse
That was written 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah, right?
It's so beautiful.
I know.
It's just so beautiful. Like, the string writing is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
That feels like somebody who knows, like, about string playing, not just like string sound that they found in like a library,
Mm-hmm.
but who like, I mean, again, if somebody presented that to me, like in a recital hall with a string quartet and a singer, and didn't tell me that it was video game music, I would be like, what language is that? What is It's been gorgeous, all these different themes. Like, that's
and it feels like a modern retelling of the Vivaldi Four Seasons, because it's about the four different emotions of this particular character that's very bad. And so we live in apparently there's this paradox where you're living in the emotions of this very vile person.
Like, all the stuff that you're linking me to, like, all of this is a surprise to me. There are things that are not surprising to me, things that feel soundtracky and, kind of, especially like battle music or sort of like epic music. Like, we're going to, here's the beginning, we're going to take you back in time and like tell you this kind of epic story. This feels really personal, but also just the quality and the variety of the composition and of the performances. Like, that's, I didn't know there was anything like that in video games.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. It's crazy, right? I told you. I told you.
I mean, it makes sense that, that if you were a composer, there's a lot of different things there's a lot of different places that you can be writing, right? So
there's a lot of access to a lot of different styles and genres, and you can mix and match and mold them, and there's no rule book. I think sometimes the classical music industry, I should say, gets kind of stuck in that pattern, and especially in a non-for-profit situation where it's like, okay, well, how do we make money and deliver something? I think sometimes it's very easy to get stuck in what we know.
I mean, we've kind of been. Can I say something slightly off topic? Is that okay? You can always cut it out later, right?
Yeah.
So I've been doing some work recently with a pianist, really interesting person named Sharon Sue, and we were chatting today a little bit about like AI, and she put this really interesting thought in my head. She's like, so if AI does its thing, which is like instantly comb, like years and years of the internet, to use that information to like write a piece of classical music, what is it going to write? What have we been saying classical music is the last 30 years? And I mean, we've been saying some things that I'm not particularly excited about classical music. Like, one is that you should listen to it during your commute because it's like really calm and soothing.
Yeah. Is it?
Yeah. Is that a good thing? But I don't know. We've spent so much time defining ourselves by talking about what we're not, as opposed to what we are. But I don't know, like that one especially, everything that you're playing has got real quality to it, but this last piece especially, you could present it somewhere else, and it wouldn't be. Yeah, I'm not even sure how I want to end that sentence.
You're so right, and actually, I got really excited.
You know what I mean? It sounds like a classical musician's put down, like, oh, you could do that in a concert hall and you wouldn't even know it was video game music, but it doesn't feel programmatic in that way. Like, I don't think it's bad for something to be programmatic or sound like a soundtrack or sound like a hype track.
Yeah,
that felt like a song cycle.
I know, that you would hear in a recital.
Yeah, I mean, storytelling, like some of the other things that you've played, but like on this super intimate level. With I think incredible connection between the string playing and the singers.
Yeah. I wonder if it's because of the psychological nature of what that piece is about. And ultimately, like if we think about classical music, what is the goal of it is to cause an emotional response in some capacity, right? I think.
I hope. Or just keep you from like rear-ending the guy in front of you during your commute time.
Yeah, or that. Yes, that's doing its job. But there is something really intimate about that particular piece. And the fact that it literally came out 3 weeks ago is really astounding to me. Let's check out. I've got a couple. I've got like maybe 6 or 7 more if you're down for it.
Let's do it.
All right, word. So this one will be copyright claimed. So Nathan, let's put this on a story, and then I'll upload this in tandem with the video. But then also, Nathan, let's take this and leave it in the unedited full-length video, and we'll put that on the other channel. Okay, hopefully that made sense. If not, I will talk to you later. Sorry, Kathy. I'm like having 2 conversations.
You don't need to understand everything.
Yeah, no, it's all right. He knows. So I'll send this over. So actually, I wish that this could go in the video. It's hard. So copyright is a tricky thing because, you know, the label and the people and everything, you know, but at the same time, it's unfortunate because it does mean that my video gets demonetized, which means I don't get to make any money off of it. And this is how I base this in voiceover much less so is how I make my money now. And so it's unfortunate that a piece like this, we can't have it on. I can't include it because unfortunately, like it just affects me. But I love this piece. And you know what I'll do? I'll say, so we're actually going to be listening to the Lament of Orpheus. We're going to be listening to the Lament of Orpheus from Hades. This will not be in the full video due to a variety of issues. However, if you want to check that full video out, go ahead to Marco Meatball VODs and you can check it out there, or look forward to a 60-second short of our chat about this particular piece. What's amazing about this piece is that the Lament of Orpheus is from a game called Hades, and you play this character. You play as a character named. You know what? Doesn't matter. Cut that out, Nathan. This song, Lament of Orpheus, is from Hades, and you know, you and I both know that the story of Orpheus in the underworld is told a bajillion times, and we've heard a million different variations of it. This is Darren Korb's version of it. This is from a game called Hades. It has won multiple awards. It's about this character's escape through hell. He's the son of Hades. And I've never played it because I've played it, but I've never been able to beat it because it's called a roguelike game, which means you basically, every time you play, if you die, you have to start over and you start from the beginning. But the cool thing about this game is that they're the characters of the underworld that we both know due to our work in the classical music industry. The stories of their relationships expand every time you die. So there's actually like, it's not such a bad thing to die because you get to learn more about the characters. So let's check out the Lament of Orpheus, and I'm really curious to hear what you think about it.
that is pretty.
Yeah.
So like that, I mean, that is just like part of the long tradition of guys singing high. And all the different stuff that means. Like it's, I had a student at CCM, this brilliant young woman who wrote a whole dissertation or DMA, so it's not really a dissertation, but a big paper on sort of the meaning of, she was comparing countertenors, like Baroque countertenors, to modern present day like metal singers.
Oh.
Just, like, parsing the meaning of men singing in their high range.
Yeah.
That's like how that it like communicates rock star power, but it also communicates it can communicate otherworldliness. It also communicates this sort of intensity of emotion and like emotional expression that like in a super gendered society is often like permitted to females in a way that it's not permitted to males. So a man like singing up in a female range is permitted this whole range of expression that men in society are not necessarily permitted. And I was thinking about that the whole time, especially since that singer has elements in his voice that really remind me of Robert Plant. And just like, like Zeppelin in there.
Yeah.
Like Stairway to Heaven, like playing recorders sort of things.
It's funny that you point that out, because this all these super giant games all have this sort of rock element to them, and this is one of the ones that doesn't, even though it has that vocalism that is that like the 80s rock sort of element. It's very this music is very, very, very rock influenced, actually.
Yeah, but also just like, I mean, Hadestown has a guy singing in a soprano range playing a guitar, and he's Orpheus. Like that's like that's who that dude is.
I do love that this like story of Orpheus and the tragedy, as it were, is still, this game came out in 2018.
Okay.
And so the fact that we're still highlighting this like sad story, in my video I compared it to the Che farò senza Euridice. It's not dissimilar, and it's really impressive just how much of this is still being like shared with a modern audience.
Yeah. Well, and also like it makes me want to ask, my other friends in the industry, it's like, how much do you know about what people who are playing video games are listening to? Because like there are such strong connections here.
What's funny? Actually, it's funny you say that. Francesca Zambello, I had an interview with Christopher Tin, and Francesca Zambello, apparently he told me that the reason why he is writing the Turandot act, the finale of Act 3, is because her son was playing Civilization 6, and the main theme of Civilization 6 is this beautiful song called Sogno di Volare. And apparently she heard it, and she goes, "Who is that?" And her son was like, "Oh, Christopher Tin." And then lo and behold,
that's crazy. I love that.
But that's the thing. Like, we have this giant medium that is sort of, I always felt the duality to coming home in a tuxedo and then shedding that and then just playing video games. Like when I was in France, I was playing this game called The Division 2, and it's all about like this pandemic, and which now feels kind of, but in DC. And like, so I was in France at the time. I was living in DC and then playing a game about DC, and it was so funny to like, I feel so often we have to wear a mask and be sort of like proper in classical music and in opera and whatever, and then to come home and play these video games, and it's such there is a little pocket here that if we somehow in the classical scene just like tap into like even like 2% of it, I just think that like it would not only be a benefit to classical music and classical music entities, but also see, because right now, let me just go on a tangent here for 5 seconds. Like video game music is relegated to video game music night concerts. And then they're like, oh, now we came to you. I remember I saw a video game concert at a very prestigious hall, and they were like, we came to you, so you come to us. And I was like, no, don't, because you still cause a divide. Whereas if you somehow integrate, my God, if somehow people in the video game scene start to catch on that we're programming, and I know that there's complexity with programming and, classical music and other things and copyright and stuff, but if you start to program classical music into regular programming, I actually think there would be a cosmic shift in the way that it's a whole debate, because then you talk about John Williams and film music is film music, classical music, and this debate rages on and on and on and on. But it's a really interesting thing and something I advocate for a lot, because some of these pieces, not necessarily Lament of Orpheus, which is fine where it is, and it could be performed live happily, but some of the pieces that we've listened to today that you yourself, like Archange, could be premiered in a symphonic program that features chorus. There's no reason why it can't be. And I just think that there is a renaissance of classical music occurring in TVs.
Inside screens. This is, we were talking, when we were chatting about doing this recording together, we chatted briefly about the end of the movie Tar. So I tried to watch the movie once, and it was like PTSD land for me. And then I managed to watch it all the way through because I was on an international flight and I had nothing else to do.
Yeah.
And also it's like way less intimidating in a screen.
Yeah, I know. Not like in a big theater.
Just kind of ready for it at that point. But at the end of the movie, so the movie's about this genius, and like arrogant, abusive, supposedly brilliant conductor who has this huge downfall. And the final scene is of her with headphones on, so apparently relegated to a click track, which I'd just like to say to any classical musicians who are listening, try to play along to one of those. It's really freaking hard. It's an incredible skill. Like, I can't do it anyway. But she's conducting an orchestra in a video game night.
Oh.
So there's a screen with a bunch of like imagery playing, and they're playing video game music. And then the audience is full of fans of the video game who are like cosplaying. They've all showed up in costumes and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And so most of the people I know who have seen the movie, and that doesn't mean most of the people, it just means most of the people that I know who have seen the movie, so maybe that's a really small sample size, have taken that as sort of like the tragic end of the great conductor. Like, she used to conduct the Berlin Philharmonic, and now she's like conducting video game concerts. But now having this experience with you, I wonder what the director actually meant. Like, is he presenting a downfall, or is he presenting kind of the next place in which that kind of music making occurs? Like, is the point of the movie actually the symphony as we know it is dead? Nobody cares, and the actual passionate audiences are here? Or maybe he's saying that this is just a natural extension of the own way? Because think about it, like, video game players, 100 hours to play a game. Like, maybe the only place where that kind of commitment to a story and to like geeking out on something the way that people used to do on the Ring, maybe all of those geeks are, playing Archange now. Or whatever.
When I tell you that like the fan bases of these video games are ravenous, and I tell you that the appreciation that they have, it's like it's a very interesting niche, because a lot of us feel like we're all like yelling, "Hey, listen, pay attention." And a lot of people that have watched my channel have told me eventually that they've gone on to see operas and they really fell in love with particular opera or whatever. And we do an opera like once or so every month or 2 months, where we just sit down and I find an opera that has subtitles in English and we just watch it. And I give like nonstop commentary during it. And these are attended by about 60 or so people, sometimes more, sometimes less. And usually people come away with, oh my God, I had no idea that opera was like this. And I think like, this is that ever-present conversation of like, what are we doing in the classical sphere, and how can we better? I think what I've learned is that you have to go to people, and so often we want people to come to us in the classical industry,
right?
Because it's an amazing experience or whatever.
Well, we've kind of internalized this idea that there's a lot that is communicated to us through our training that puts this particular like niche of composition up on the top of a hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
And so other people need to kind of like learn and give it a chance and realize how amazing it is. So what would happen if you didn't? I don't think you have to devalue it. I don't think you have to do anything except maybe just like move it off of the top of the pile.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, people should come. It's great. People should come over and experience this, but also what if we went over somewhere else? Like I'm having this experience today with you listening to these soundtracks, and like, I don't love everything. I'm not inspired by everything, but like everything that you're playing is good quality. And there have been multiple like delightful surprises.
Yeah.
And it's also fascinating for me to see the values that are kind of in common across the compositions that you're playing, especially just like beauty.
Yeah. And emphasis on beauty, yeah.
Yeah, but also this sort of really like old-fashioned, really old-fashioned serious approach to storytelling.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge.
Peter Jackson, John Ford, Richard Wagner, the epicness of it.
Mm-hmm.
Epicness?
Mm-hmm. Speaking of epicnicity, I've got one for you that you might find interesting. This is another FromSoft track that I think it's a jarring journey, and I'm very curious to hear your perspective on it. This is from this game called Bloodborne, like I told you, that has this Lovecraftian sort of vibe to it, and this is Ludwig the Accursed and Ludwig the Holy Blade, and like I said, From Software music tends to have two phases, and so the first half is Ludwig the Accursed, and the second half is Ludwig the Holy Blade.
Yes.
Well, about to move into phase 2 here.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a trip and a half. It's
It's cool. Again, like it's so, it would be thrilling to hear live, but it'd be so hard to sing.
Yeah.
That feels like somebody who like did their homework and listened to all the Shostakovich symphonies. But I'm so interested by the fact that the chorus is so far in the background at the beginning, and that cello solo is so prominent.
It's because Ludwig was a holy knight that was consumed by consumed by the old blood, and the blood. It's something about the blood, which then it's a fantastic game, but it's the plot is purposefully like you really have to connect the dots, and there's a lot of lore and things. So Ludwig was supposed to be like part of the cure for this sickness. And instead, he became corrupted by it and deformed, and he became a man, literally, with his face became like that of a horse. He became a horse face, and it's very gnarly, and so he has this moonlight sword that he fights you with, and so he was Ludwig the Holy Blade. And I think the reason why the music is so distorted is that he was supposed to be the holy knight, and instead he became the cursed. And so you hear that in the crunch and in that disgusting sort of like dance. It's a duel with death, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's intense.
Yeah, it is. It's man, oh man. That's another tale as old as time, like the corrupted, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'll give you something lighter. We're almost done. We have, are you okay for like 5 more?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. All right, cool. As long as you're having fun. That's all.
Totally.
Actually, everything I have is not that nice. It's all pretty intense. Here, this is peaceful. Let's listen to this. This is from Destiny 1, The Traveler.
That's cool. That's gorgeous.
Yeah. It's this game called Destiny, and it's all about science fiction. And this theme is actually about the Traveler, which is this giant ball that appears at some point in history, human history. And the Traveler, people begin to revere it as a god, and it gives us the ability to not die, and it powers these little mechanical things called ghosts. And so guardians are essentially, they cannot die while their ghost is alive. And so the Traveler is the sort of benevolent, well, we think benevolent being. It's sort of convoluted who it decides to give its light to and who it decides to keep alive and not be able to die. And it's really, I think that paints such an interesting depiction of the mysticism of the Traveler. I also think the children's chorus is a really interesting touch there in the middle, the purity.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. That was what, like 3 minutes long?
Mm-hmm.
And just this whole encapsulated story.
Just like that, yeah. And again, it's like, and it's pretty simple if you think about it, because it's just strings.
Right. Yeah, but the harmonic progression after the cello solo started in the beginning was just like beautiful.
Yeah.
Really beautiful.
Yeah, it's a good team, and it's actually really cool because their music it's all gun fighting. It's all like first person shooter, which is so you see the perspective of the gun, and you're just fighting different bad races of enemies. And their music is in such a way that they actually are able to create themes, and they use leitmotif excessively, fantastically. And so they have a 10-year history now where they're pulling leitmotifs from when the game first released in 2014, and they're still using the leitmotifs, and their battle music is very it just changes on a dime. I forget what that musical term. I can't remember. But essentially, like you'll have this. It's heavily influenced by rhythm and beat pattern, but then it's able to just like switch instantly, and it moves into a melodic pattern at the same time. It's just like really beautiful stuff. Okay, we're almost done. Let's go to something kind of crazy and totally different.
Okay, I'm down.
This is a very long track. We're not going to listen to the whole thing. We'll probably stop like 4 minutes in, but this is the Warrior of Light theme from Final Fantasy XIV, which is an Do you know what an MMORPG is?
I don't. RPG I know is role-playing game.
So an MMO is a massive multiplayer online game.
Oh, so like Fortnite.
No. Well, no. More like do you know RuneScape or EverQuest?
I know of both of those. I literally only name the games that like my nephews have played.
EverQuest was popular in the late 90s, early 2000s. It's heralded as one of the first MMOs, and basically this is from Final Fantasy, and Final Fantasy is a series that is 35 years old, and it's called Final Fantasy because when they made it, that was going to be the last game that they ever made, and now we're about to hit number 16 in June, so not so final anymore. Very popular. 35 years old, yeah. And that's 35 years of fantastic music from chiptune era all the way to now. This is from Final Fantasy XIV. It's called To the Edge. This is very story heavy. And essentially, in spoilers for anybody who hasn't played Shadowbringers, just for the record. And this is, this game encapsulates a million different genres and styles. And I'm curious to hear what you think of this style. Actually, I was thinking about those lyrics really quick. It says, "To begin, we must begin. To begin, we first must see the end." And actually, the composer Masayoshi Soken wrote this while he was literally hospitalized, fighting laryngeal cancer. And he wrote this, and I think the community at large really I think this track is not just about this particular character and like the search for one's home, but also like the journey of life and stuff. So yeah, it's super different from what we've listened to, but I was intrigued to show you something a little bit off the beaten path, which is not so beaten at all. But yeah, I'm just curious what you thought about that.
It's just like super layered sound, a whole bunch of stuff going on. Yeah. The singer reminds me a little bit of David Bowie, just in like the quality of voice.
Yeah.
Just nothing more than that. But it feels very like, I don't know, Emerson, Lake and Palmer. But like layers and layers and layers of sound.
It's really interesting. Soken is incredible at this feat of like just a million different layers, and there's so many. There's actually there's a motive in there from the beginning of Shadowbringers, the main trailer music, the main music of the game. Then on top of that, you've got some references to past expansions, and this expansion was the fourth expansion, and so there was a lot to work on, and there's just music for every little instance of this game. There's music, and this particular moment near the end of this Shadowbringers expansion was really, really, really special for the gaming community that enjoys this game. And like the ticking clock symbolizing movement of time, and then you've got the melody and the chorus riding home, going home. There's just so much stuff going on. And yeah, I wanted to just show you that because it's a special little tune. So
I love knowing that there's music from earlier iterations included in this, like just using music to talk about an amalgamated story.
Yeah,
here's everything you've heard before and
something else.
Yeah, put into a familiar form but a completely new sound because it's history being accrued.
Mm-hmm. And that's the beauty of it, is that it's like not only is it leitmotif play, but it's also variation on a theme, which is so fun from a classical perspective to be like, oh yeah, this is variation on a theme. This is like basic stuff that we know, that we hear. Like you think about like, a theme of Rachmaninoff's Paganini,
the Paganini variations. Yeah. That's a compositional technique that goes back so far, just taking something simple and continuing to add stuff. But this is like literally adding stuff, not just varying the theme, but like putting in all of this information from before. And I love how dense and kind of noisy it is.
Yeah. With the soundscape too.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I was really excited to share that one with you. Okay, got 4 more.
Okay.
I want to remove one of these though. One of them is only like 2 minutes. Let's go. This is crazy. You'll find, I'm really curious to hear what you think about this. This is from a game called Warhammer 40,000 Mechanicus. It's called The Children of the Omnissiah.
Oh my God.
It's a trip and a half. I love it.
That is cool. So like the thing that stands out for me is that rhythmically it's got stuff that would never happen like in ancient times, but the basic vibe of it is so, 1,000 years ago.
Yeah.
But then it's got that little like ba 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 ba, which is something totally different. That's not like from Periton or the 11th century.
The organ
kind of unashamedly just like like D minor parallel fifths.
Yeah. It's like basically in praise of the machine god, and so you get that mechanical element, but then you also have the holy aspect. So video game music often uses the organ as a device to either showcase unholiness or to showcase religious fanaticism.
So literally, like what movies have done. And yeah.
It's powerful when you hear the organ, and it'll come in a couple of random times. You're like, oh, is that an organ? And you're like, oh, because kind of when the harpsichord comes in, you're like, oh shit, is that a harpsichord? And it's so effective because of this, like,
Okay, what's your favorite organ playing scene in movies?
Oh God, I don't know. I can't think of any off the top of my head.
I can tell you mine.
Tell me yours.
Sunset Boulevard.
Oh, I've never seen that movie.
Oh, you've got to see Sunset Boulevard. So at one point, the creepy servant in the house with the insane old silent movie actress, there's an organ in her unbelievably ritzy old LA mansion, and he sits down and just starts like playing the organ.
Really?
Yes. It's such a great sort of like sarcastic 1950s American horror movie. It doesn't present like a horror movie, but it's totally a horror movie.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love Act 3 from Faust with the organ and the church scene.
Yeah, right?
Oh. Like,
yeah. So like there's another trope, like the main music maker in the church is there to signify not that everything is holy, but that something is really like deeply
really bad. Yeah. Love that. Yeah. So I just want to share that with you because I find the organ really, really fun and interesting there. We got an oldie here, an oldie but a goodie. This is I've heard this
2014 or something.
No, this is from like 1990.
Oh my God.
1998, I believe. Yeah, that's when Final Fantasy. So we listened to Final Fantasy 14. Now we're going backwards to Final Fantasy 8. And for young Marco, video game music was the reason I became a singer and the reason why I fell in love with music. And I remember hearing this track for the first time, Liberi Fatali it's called. And it's actually an anagram. So Phytos Lusek, Phytos Vinosek is, I forget, Phytos Lusek. It's an anagram. So this game is all about witches and like magic and a whole bunch of other things. And Phytos Lusek Vikos Vinosek is part of the lyrics of Liberi Fatali, the opening theme of Final Fantasy VIII. The phrase is an anagram of the phrases succession of witches and love, the main themes in the game. Okay. So just a little fun fact for you. So we'll listen to this and then I'm very curious to hear your perspective. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Nathan, this might be a copyright claim. I'm not sure.
Cool. What I love about that is the voices in the orchestration are so individual. That feels like somebody that like knows their orchestra.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like really, really distinctive writing. That's somebody who knows their Verdi Requiem and stuff after that. But also there's such contrast in the vocal writing. There's the whole like Carl Orff like
the middle
Latin, badass Latin, but then it totally changes character. So that feels like that feels like someone who's in love with the mechanics and the like sound personalities of different distinctive instruments in an old style orchestra.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that's the power of Nobuo Uematsu is he is sort of the grandfather of Final Fantasy and the father of, he was writing on chiptune since at 35 years old. He was like,
I don't know what chiptune is.
So chiptune is I'll have to play you some. Chiptune is it's very specific to games that were on the NES and SNES, Super Nintendo.
Okay.
And there was a quality to them that is. I'll play you an example. Just so actually here, I'll play you an example right now that's related to this. That way you can just understand. This is actually this is from Final Fantasy VI. It's called Dancing Mad, and it's 17 minutes, so we're not going to listen to it. But if you like it, you can take away and listen to it on your own. But so we'll just listen to the first couple of minutes. So this was written. This is chiptune when I described chiptune. When I say chiptune, I actually think I'm talking about more like MIDI, but
that sounds really like that. Yeah, that sounds really old.
And and what's really interesting actually is that this this Dancing Mad sequence is actually a full symphonic movement. There are 4 movements, and this is I forget the saying is like he was somehow able to compose it's the Michelangelo Uematsu composing such a masterpiece using the SNES sound chip would be like as if Michelangelo painted the Sistine Chapel with crayons. And that's what people love this piece, and it's the final boss fight for this boss named Kefka, and he's a terrible, terrible, terrible person. And he ascends and becomes a god, and then he's slain. And so this whole thing is, anyway, it's crazy. It's a 17-minute piece. But so going back to Liberi Fatali, so you see the evolution where this person composed this, and then a couple years later in 1999 composed, with essentially that was MIDI, but it still has that orchestral. It's the same sort of learned, and I believe he's also self-taught. None of this is like from school, which is even crazier.
But it just strikes me like if you're like me. So it's interesting when you played that for me just now, that you called it MIDI. That is a kind of computer sound, like a computer generated sound that I recognize, which means that in the 90s, when I was a young person and had computers for the first time and like heard, I mean, maybe I heard sounds like that, right? But that's sort of, if you don't stay in that world like I didn't, just like playing acoustic music on instruments that were perfected in the 19th century, I'm sort of being confronted with my incredible lack of awareness of what the sound worlds actually are like, and I think my sort of sound model for like computer sound is what you just played for me.
Yeah.
Which is like, and it's interesting to hear your anecdote that this is like Michelangelo painting the Sistine Chapel with crayons. Yeah. It does make me think, like, if you are an interesting composer, why would you work in that sound world? Like, why would you want to? But I mean, they
had no choice. That was what they had.
Yeah, but it's also 30 years ago, and I sort of, again, my concept of improvement is how good is a digital piano? And, how well can I teach over Zoom, and not like what you're playing for me. I think, I didn't know how good it could sound.
Well, it's crazy though. This is a great segue into the next piece, and then there's one more piece after that we'll end with. But so it's funny, Nathan, this will almost for sure be copyright, just so you know. So maybe a short here. I think I'm gonna play you. Here it is. So actually, this was 4 years ago, and it's by a guy named Toby Fox, and this is chiptune written in 4 years ago. It's called Field of Hopes and Dreams. And so this will be a soundscape that you remember, and essentially beeps and boops, but with a modern twist to it.
So is this like an early music guy?
Basically.
It's like historically informed practice.
That's hilarious, actually. I never thought about it that way. But actually, yeah, that's a really good, that's funny. I just heard this song recently, and it makes me very happy. His game Undertale it takes the trope of the RPG, the turn-based RPG, which means you go, I go, you go, I go. So you fight the enemy, they go. And then Undertale takes that and spins it on its head. And it's a fantastic emotion. I cried while playing it because it was so deeply moving at one point. And I've never cried at a video game ever. And it really struck me. Yeah, but so this is a Field of Hopes and Dreams. And I'm curious to hear how your brain will connect to the beeps and boops, but in a 2018-19 way.
I sort of love this.
we can stop there. But if you like this, I've got one more in the style that, and then we can sort of circle back to this whole concept here.
The very 80s thing that makes me want to say is, now is the time on Sprache, it's when we dance. Do you know what that reference is? No. It is a very old Saturday Night Live reference when Michael Myers was on Saturday Night Live and played a character on a German television show called Kita. The name of the television show was Sprockets. And it would always end with a dance break to like some.
Oh, really?
Like,
that's what. So this is from Undertale.
The 80ness of the sound.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Toby Fox is definitely the early music expert of video games when it comes to composition, you know?
I love the idea that, like, in my world, that's people who are like, look at this virginal from 1549 restored. And in your world, it's Toby Fox being like, listen to this. I'm composing, with beeps and boops.
Yeah. But then really quickly, we'll listen to like 2 minutes of this track. This is from Undertale, that game I was just talking about. This will blow your mind, I think, without hyping it up too much. Let me just say that this video has had 99 million views in 3 years. So Ethan.
That is so fun.
Crazy, right?
I mean, literally, I'm just now in this conversation with you clocking what my sound world was in the 80s.
Yeah.
Like, there are so many associations that come back through those sounds. It's like early MTV, you know, that's wild. It's just wild.
Yeah,
I think it's really fun. That kind of rocks.
And honestly, all of these tunes from Undertale all have this 8-bit sound quality to them, and all of them are really unique and interesting, and also deeply heartfelt. There are some tracks in here that are so unbelievably beautiful, and are really moving. And this one in particular is called Megalovania, because this is the end of there are multiple different ways to play this game, and one of them is called the genocide route, where you, instead of saving everybody, you kill everybody.
Wow.
And it's intended to be played after you sort of save everybody, and then you go back and the game remembers what you've done, and everyone's like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And so this is like the stopping point where your friend is essentially like, what are you doing? And he's very difficult, and it's intended to be a stopping point so that you would stop doing it. And it's a very powerful. I never played the genocide route because I don't have the heart to do it after finishing the pacifist route. But yeah, so that was that. And then, so I guess before we wrap up, and then I ask you a bunch of piercing questions about how you've come away from this video, I would love it if you would share a little bit about, you know, who you are, what you've done in the world, and you know, like you're a prolific person in the industry, and I'd love to sort of, you know, get your abridged CV, and I'll tag your actual bio and website in the about section. But yeah, feel free to.
Okay. I mean, I've spent a whole lot of my life working in opera. I'm a pianist, and originally I just worked with singers because I thought singing was so interesting. I feel like it's interesting that pianists and singers work together because piano is like the opposite of singing. Singing is literally like in your body, and it's this incredibly brave and vulnerable act. You have to like breathe in and then like make your own noise. And the piano is like this giant 19th century machine, like made out of steel, and you can kind of hide behind it. And it's just levers. I mean, of course, you know, it can be more amazing than that. I mean, any machine is more amazing than the sum of its parts.
Yeah.
But there's something about playing the piano that isn't intimate and vulnerable at all. You're more like at the wheel of a giant car, you know? Anyway, that was a digression.
No, it's interesting.
I ended up apprenticing at the San Francisco Opera, and then I worked for a bunch of opera companies for a long time. The important ones were, or the ones that were major in my life, where I spent major time, were San Francisco, the Metropolitan Opera, Houston Grand Opera, and the Vienna State Opera. And then after that, I pivoted into education because it was time for something different. Now I'm on the faculty of Baylor University in Texas, and I still play the piano for people. I recently made a recording that is doing pretty well in classical terms with a wonderful singer named Emily Albrink. I still do some conducting. I'm writing a libretto right now. I do a lot of cool projects. Right now I'm in Tokyo, coaching people who want to sing opera in Tokyo. So the coolest thing about this profession is that it's kind of taken me all over the world and put me in positions where I could meet a lot of people that I wouldn't otherwise meet. And so I've been pretty fortunate.
That's the versatility of it for sure, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's a wild ride, and I'm still on. I haven't fallen off yet. So
it was one of the things I was most afraid of when I decided to leave and pivot to voiceover, and then subsequently on accident, this YouTube channel was the loss of meeting cool people and interesting people, and voiceover was very global for me and continues to be global. And then this YouTube channel, I mean, if you're watching this, chances are you don't always necessarily live in the United States, and it's been really great to be able to. I have a lot of, speak different languages on streams, and, people are like, wow, you speak French. Wow, you speak German. My German is absolute trash. I know you speak German. I have a lot of German audience.
My German is only slightly trashy, but it's still trashy. But isn't it amazing to be connected with people all over the world? I mean,
it's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
the power of music too,
Yeah.
It doesn't go away. Well, let's wrap up with this beautiful piece, Kindred, the Eternal Hunters, and then I'll ask you a couple questions, and then I will let you go to sleep because it's very late for you there. And
yeah, this has been really fun though. This is so cool.
I'm glad that you've liked it because it's important. It's important work, and I'm glad I'm trying to start to evangelize now that I've been doing it for a year to start to hey, listen, this is like good stuff here. But we'll talk about that after.
Perfect. That's beautiful.
Isn't that?
Yeah.
What would you think of the character? So that's a character theme. What do you think that character is about, just from the music, as a fun little guessing game?
That's a great question. I have no idea, obviously. It feels really solitary to me.
Mm-hmm.
It feels really lonely.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what else to say.
It's actually the manifestation of death.
Okay.
So there are two kindred. I forget all the details, but essentially, it's funny that you say solitary because the lore suggests, if I remember correctly, that a man was lonely and carved out the two beings and sort of brought them into being, brought them into life. And the piano represents the sort of like, the graceful way to die. Like, oh, if you'd like, you can, the sort of like not the Grim Reaper, but sort of an angel. And the cello represents the wolf, and the wolf will hunt you down if you resist death. And so the duality there plays into each other. And but isn't that, just the ebbing and flowing there of the cello mixed with the piano, it's beautiful, isn't it? It's like,
it is beautiful. It's really evocative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. So I guess to wrap things up, we're going on 2 hours and 15 minutes here. Thank you so much, Kathy, for taking, I know you've had a very busy day. So coming away with this, like, what's your perspective on video game music now that you've listened to it? Because you had no knowledge besides Asteroids before these 2 hours. So like,
that's right.
What's your takeaway from 2 hours of this?
It's obviously there's a lot more that I have to learn, especially since by your own admission, you're kind of playing me some classics and some real, like, you're a classical musician and you know this music a lot better than I do. So you've kind of chosen the most Carmina Burana, like.
Yeah, I was like, here, let's gently guide you in.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you'll notice this, you'll understand this music. But I'm surprised by the quality of the sound world. I'm surprised by the quality of some of the composition. Quality, what does that mean? The detail of it, the detail of instrumental and vocal understanding, and the sort of like world painting. I'm surprised to hear so many examples that feel really recognizable and really connected to sort of theatrical traditions of the past. This music feels really theatrical to me.
Yeah.
Because theater music also tells stories, but there's also some music that is just vibe setting.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime there's a battle on stage, you have music that is just like...
Exactly.
Yeah, there to whip up the audience rush.
Yeah, it's supposed to make you feel a certain way.
Yeah, I guess I find myself just surprised and sort of delighted by it. But also, I think it would... You made such a good point earlier about people being invited to come into classical spaces to hear, like video game music, and then, people hoping that they'll come back. I think, I don't know, I feel like I should spend some more time in video game spaces, not necessarily playing games, but as you sent me these clips, I see that there's like acres of music available on YouTube, just to find out what people are writing, because that's what a professional musician should do, is to know what is happening in other genres. And this is a genre that I hadn't really considered.
Yeah,
because I didn't know anything about it. So
do you think that that there is a stigma in the classical music world that music that isn't classical, innate, like the standard, symphonic literature, is sort of looked down upon, or looked down as less than? Or do you think that that's sort of changing as time has gone on?
I think it's probably, I do think it's changing, but I think a very difficult hurdle for people steeped in classical traditions is making it over the non-live performance, non-acoustic.
Mm-hmm.
And some of that is a matter of how we've defined ourselves. Like since the amplification of Broadway and electric music coming into popular genres and other genres, one of the sort of lines that we've drawn in the sand is we don't use mics. Like our performances are, and that becomes this whole like battlefield. Like,
I didn't use a microphone.
I saw a mic taped to that person. It's like amplified. That's just for the recording, and but it just that just serves to illustrate the fact that that's like a defining point. So I think that is often like the sticking point, the idea that a click track is depersonalizing, or that anything that's synced up to anything else is depersonalized and therefore a step out of the tradition. But it's also just lack of familiarity, right? No matter what tradition you play in, again, people from outside of classical traditions feel uncomfortable with classical traditions because they don't understand what they are. The reverse is also true.
Right.
So,
yeah,
the more you know, right?
Yeah. What was there a track today that you listened to that sticks out to you as one of your favorites?
Yeah, I loved the last one.
Kindred, nice.
Yeah, I really did. But what was the one what was
the Viri Paradox, the Warframe Space Ninjas one?
I can't remember if it was Space Ninjas or the one right after that. Well, there was. See, I don't know them well enough, and
I don't remember either. Ooh. What was that?
It was another one that featured cello.
It wasn't Haiti.
You'll when you go back and edit the recording, you'll see it. Yeah, like it was my obvious favorite, and now I'm like,
that's okay. It doesn't matter. I'll find it. We'll find it. But yeah, so shit. Now I can't. It's all right. That was a long time ago.
I know.
How many did we listen to? Jesus.
It's like 1 a.m. here in Tokyo, so I'm not going to feel bad about not remembering stuff.
No, don't feel bad. But that's, I'm glad that.
No, it was like the singer and string quartet one.
Oh yeah, from the Duviri Paradox. Yes, from Warframe, the Space Ninjas. Yeah.
It is the Space Ninjas.
It is the Space Ninjas. Yeah. So you really like that one in Kindred.
Yeah, that was cool. The one that I ranted about for a while.
Yeah. It's gorgeous. Well, listen, Kathy, thank you so much for, first of all, reaching out to me after you saw that post I made, and also just, being so open-minded. I think it's exciting, and I'm sure that the viewers will also be really grateful to learn some nuggets from you. And, you're such a prolific and important person, and especially in the opera scene, I feel like, it's cool to have you on here, and I hope that also expands out for more people that are like, oh, Kathy Kelly went on. Well, shoot, I gotta go listen to some video game music, and hopefully we can keep this going.
I think it's so cool what you're doing, and like it's a great opportunity because we know each other to just learn some more stuff.
Yeah.
So
it's my pleasure.
This was very awesome. Thank you so much for doing it, and thanks for putting that invitation out there. I hope more people like grab onto it and come onto your show and here's some stuff.
I appreciate that. Well, thanks, Kathy. And thank you, everybody, for watching this, especially if you watched the unedited version. You're an MVP. And if you watched the short version on the channel, well, I hope you enjoyed that, too. Stay tuned for shorts for some of the copyrighted songs that we have will adjust for you to make everybody happy. And as always, thanks a ton. Feel free to like, subscribe, and I'll talk to you later. Thanks. Bye, everybody. See ya.